All right. I am going back to the old format, the long format. So, yeah, back to the long format of me writing the notes with you. If you already know most of Saavedra and Silverman, button phobia, then you should just like skip to the end, skip to like, I don't know, like probably 15 minutes before the end, something like that. Um, maybe more, maybe less. um, and then you'll get me just reading through the summary, reading through the notes, uh, and that'll be a better refresher or a more efficient refresher than you just being here for an hour. So, Saavedra and Silverman. Background doesn't matter. These two lovely ladies, apparently. Um, Psychology being investigated, phobias, classical conditioning. This is important actually for this. So, something important. So, one explanation of phobias. I mean, I hope you know what a phobia is. If you don't, pause the video and look it up. One explanation of phobias is that they are something learned through classical conditioning. If a neutral stimulus, something that normally does not cause fear or normally does not cause any sort of emotion, is present at the same time as something scary, we may learn to associate the neutral stimulus with the scary stimulus. The previously neutral stimulus is now called a conditioned stimulus because it triggers the same level of fear as whatever it was that scared us in the first place. This is called expectancy learning. Okay. Hopefully you understand what classical conditioning is. Evaluative learning, whatever, operant conditioning. So operant conditioning is things like positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment, these things. Yeah, they use that. Besides that, none of this other stuff is that important. This is just an example of the thing. We'll go over it just very quickly. So we have aims, two aims, research methodology, measured variables, sample, procedure, initial assessment and diagnosis, treatment, behavioral exposure, another treatment, discuss related imagery exposure. We have a discuss/fear hierarchy here, 11 items long. The treatment, discuss related imagery exposure, and post-treatment and the follow-up phase. Then results, when did the phobias begin? How was the boy's daily functioning affected? Progress in the first 4 sessions through behavioral exposure. We have a graph here. The next 7 sessions, discuss related imagery and cognitions, table, and then post-treatment 6 and 12-month follow-up sessions. And we have our conclusion and the evaluation. And then let's read the brief right here. This case study describes how a young boy developed his phobias of buttons through evaluative learning, how the therapist confirmed his diagnosis of specific phobia, and then how they went on to treat him using a combination of behavioral exposure and discussed imagery exposure and cognitions. Saavedra and Silverman explained that targeting disgust in this unusual phobia was central to the success of the treatment. Alrighty. So they said evaluative learning here. Maybe we should go over that because I don't even remember what that is. If you're not familiar with this channel, I'm also studying because I actually have the exam tomorrow. So I don't know if I'll make, well, I will make more videos actually after this. Maybe. We'll see. I might finish everything today because I have the exam tomorrow. I'm retaking AS levels because I had chicken pox last year. I'm doing A levels right now, but I have to retake my AS level psychology. Isn't that nice? All right. Evaluative learning. Evaluative learning is a special type of classical conditioning. If a neutral stimulus is paired with something that the person finds really disgusting, then the previously neutral stimulus may now provoke the same negative reaction as the disgusting stimulus. Evaluative learning is not the same as expectancy learning. The person does not anticipate any danger or threat. They do not feel scared. They just experience an involuntary disgust response due to the strong association that has been made. They now perceive or evaluate the previously neutral stimulus in a negative way, but cannot always explain why. All right. Cool. Let's get started, shall we? It's a pretty long one. Kind of. The aim research methodology is pretty normal length. Procedure is kind of short actually, and then results is super long, and conclusion is short. In terms of evaluation, get this fucking bullshit right here. Look at all this garbage. To be fair, the evaluation is actually a useful part. It's one of the more, I think, actually useful parts of this syllabus, compared to being forced to just remember a bunch of different numbers that are pretty much irrelevant to a study, when you should just know the idea of it and how it applies or whatever. But instead, you have to memorize a bunch of random bullshit. But I already whined about that multiple times in other videos, so that's enough for this video. Okay. There's multiple A's in her name? Yes, Saavedra. It's not it at all, because it's two people. Button Phobia. Okay. Aims. Our first aim, highlight the role of evaluative learning and discuss in the development and treatment of children's phobias. The role of evaluative learning and discussed in the development and treatment of children's phobias. Sorry, my brain's kind of all over the place right now. I'm just like thinking of completely different stuff while reading it out loud. It's crazy. I don't know how my brain multitasks like that. Dude. Okay. Sorry, my dad just came in. We're moving right now, so we're moving, so that might happen a few more times. All right, let's continue. Sorry, I'm very tired. Okay, so case study aimed to highlight the role of evaluative learning and discuss in the development and treatment of children's phobias. By role of evaluative learning, that says learning, and discussed. Wow, I can't type. And develop. Okay. In the development and treatment of children's phobias. Very nice. Then, a second aim, test the efficacy of imagery exposure as part of an exposure-based cognitive behavioral treatment for a specific phobia of buttons. Test the efficacy of imagery exposure part of an exposure-based cognitive, like, what are all these words, bro? Surely not needed. Behavioral treatment for specific phobia of buttons. Treatment. Okay. Aim's done. Research methodology. Research meth. Okay, Saavedra and Silverman is an example of a case study. Case study. The researchers present an in-depth explanation of a single case of an unusual rare condition, button phobia. Both qualitative and quantitative data were provided using a variety of measures, structured interview, observation, and the use of a psychometric scale to measure subjective distress. The study was longitudinal, as the boy's behavior was studied before, during, and after treatment, and he also attended follow-up sessions at 6 and 12 months after treatment. So, a few important words here, as they say here: case study, interview, rating, scale, observation. Also, longitudinal study. So, case study, longitudinal study. Sorry about that banging, if you can hear that. people be cleaning up the rooms around me. You might think it's interesting that my parents decided to have the main moving days exact, like on the day, on the oh my god, I actually can't think. Basically, today is the day before my exam. Yesterday is when the big moving started. I helped, get ready for this house move for like probably, I don't know, like 8 hours or something. And then today I helped for 6 hours. 2 days before my exam. Tomorrow is my exam. You might wonder why my parents chose to do this to me. I ask the same question to myself every day. Well, not every day, but the last 2 days. Okay, let's get back on track. So, longitudinal study. We don't need this. Longitudinal study. If you don't know what those are, it kind of gets explained. Yeah. Researchers present an in-depth explanation of a single case. That's what a case study is. Unusual, rare conditions. So it's this one guy, it's one boy. And then longitudinal study means it takes place over a long amount of time. They get they take data from different points during that long amount of time. Okay. All of this stuff here will be talked about later, so it's fine. We don't have to include it. Measured variables. So the measured variables. The boy's approach and avoidance behaviors were carefully observed and recorded during the therapy sessions. Approach behaviors included touching, holding, and manipulating the buttons. A feeling thermometer was used to score the participant's subjective level of distress on a 9-point scale ranging from 0 to 8. Okay. Measured variables. Approach and avoidance behaviors. Observed and recorded in the therapy sessions. EX, touching, holding, manipulating. Feelings thermometer. Feelings thermometer used to score subjective level of distress on a 9-point scale. Score distress. And we'll write 0 to 8. Okay. Then we have sample. It's just the kid. The participant was a 9-year-old Hispanic American boy from Florida, USA. 9-year-old boy. American. Hispanic. Florida. Yeah. He was selected for the study as his mother had brought him to the Child Anxiety and Phobia program at Florida International University in Miami due to his phobia of buttons. His phobia had started when he was 5 years old, and the boy had been living with his condition for 4 years. He did not have any other diagnosed disorders, for example, OCD. So, had button phobia since 5 years old. Selected for study from just whatever phobia program at uni. Yeah, mom. Beautiful. Okay, and we get the procedure. Procedure: initial assessment, diagnosis. Initial assessment, / diagnosis. The boy and his mother were interviewed using a semi-structured interview schedule called the Anxiety Disorders Interview Schedule for DSM-IV child and parent versions. This interview allowed the researchers to confirm that the boy met the criteria to be diagnosed with acidic phobia. This was due to his marked and persistent avoidance of buttons. Interviewed, or we'll just try semi. Oh my goodness, my fingers are not working. Oh, structured interview. Where's right? INTP. Interview. Best if he has specific phobia. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. The researchers also asked the boy and his mother about stressful life events that may have triggered the phobia. Sometimes anxiety disorders can be triggered by traumatic events, for example, sexual or physical abuse or accidents, and the researchers needed to rule this out before deciding on the best way to treat him. They also checked to see whether he met the criteria for any other disorders, such as OCD. Neither the child nor his mother mentioned the key symptoms of OCD, and so this was ruled out. Okay. Ruled out. Passed. Ruled out past events, for example, abuse, past traumatic events, and other disorders, for example, OCD, as causes for the phobia. Okay, treatment, behavioral exposure. It's important that you know that you understand the difference between these behavioral exposure and disgust-related imagery exposure, because I'm telling you right now, I don't remember, and I didn't remember even when I was. I mean, not when I took the test, 'cause I didn't take the test, but I remember specifically this shit being a little bit confusing, but it probably won't be now in retrospect. Well, this is not retrospect, this is right now, but you know what I mean. Now that I'm taking it, now that I'm reading it again. So yeah, treatment, behavioral exposure. So this phase included 4 50-minute exposure-based. Oh, this is the bad part. You have to remember this, that it's 4 50-minute blah 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 blah. You have to remember that garbage, bro. Oh god. Okay. 4 50-minute exposure-based sessions. 30 minutes alone, 20 minutes with mom. Creating, or we'll just write fear hierarchy, because this is easier to remember. Hierarchy. Fear hierarchy. So, the boy worked with the therapist to create a list of 11 stimuli relating to buttons. Created list of 11 stimuli. Button stimuli. If you don't know what that means, I mean, I assume you know what stimuli means, but basically just, you can see here, large denim jean buttons, small denim jean buttons, clip-on denim jean buttons, large plastic buttons, so on. That's what they mean. They used the feelings thermometer to help the boy identify how distressing each stimulus would be to him. Then they placed the stimuli into rank order for those that cause him the least distress to the most distress. Cool. Ranked via feelings thermometer from least to least to most distressing. Nice. Very nice. Okay, in vivo exposures. Yeah, there's this shit as well. So many things that have exposure in the name. Behavioral exposure, in vivo exposure, discuss-related imagery exposure. Like, that's what was tripping people up in my class, I remember. Some random-ass bullshit, this stuff, man. Is what it is. Let's do it. These involved gradual exposures to buttons in vivo. In vivo means real life. If the boy was able to tolerate the buttons, his mother would reward him with praise. This is known as contingency management. All right. Gradual exposure to buttons IRL. If he tolerated them, rewarded by mom with praise. And this is, of course, positive reinforcement, which is, say it with me, 3, 2, 1, operant conditioning. Nice, I knew you could do it. Let's continue. Okay. Treatment. Discussed related imagery exposure. And this is some bullshit. This phase included 7 sessions. 7 sessions where the therapist asked the boy to describe how buttons look, feel, and smell to explain how he felt when imagining them, while imagining them. The therapist prompted him to imagine buttons of different sizes, including small ones, which he found most distressing. They also used a technique called cognitive restructuring, which they don't explain. Okay, nice. Well, just because I'm a curious cat, and maybe you are too. Cognitive restructuring. Therapeutic technique used in... Oh, yes. That's why it sounds familiar, because I probably learned about it in A-level and forgot. Including cognitive behavioral therapy to help individuals identify and change negative or irrational. Cognitive restructuring is a therapeutic technique used in various types of therapy, including cognitive behavioral therapy, to help individuals identify and change negative or irrational thought patterns. It involves recognizing unhelpful thoughts, challenging their validity, and replacing them with more balanced and realistic ones. Cool. So, that makes sense. Let's write it down. Therapist asked boy to describe buttons, look, feel, smell, how he feels about them, etc. Prompted him to imagine if sizes, small ones, most stressing. Used cognitive restructure. I don't think you actually have to know that, but I'm just gonna write it. I don't know why. I just feel like it. Okay. And finally, post-treatment. Sorry, my mic is actually in the way. I can't even see my screen. Okay. Hopefully it's not too loud now. Let me check. Yeah, we're chilling. Okay. Post-treatment follow-up. Post-treatment and follow-up. Well, this is the shortest thing ever. The ADIS CP was used directly after treatment to measure the efficacy of treatment. Okay. What was this shit again? Anxiety disorders interview schedule. Let's write that up here. The ABIS dash C/P. I remembered that without even looking on the go. Took ADIS dash C/P again to test efficacy of treatment. And took again 6 months later. Again 12 months later. I cannot type for the life of me. Holy. Okay, results. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Let's do some entering so that we can type from the middle of the screen. When did the phobias begin? Start of phobia. When asked about stressful life events, oh, actually, this is not. Wait. I just realized I messed up over here. Where is it? Sorry, I'm retarded. Discussed past traumatic events. And ruled out other disorders as causes for the phobia. Yeah, the actual answer is that the buttons fell on his head. I think I remember. When asked about his stressful life events that might have triggered his phobia, the boy recalled a day at kindergarten, nursery school. Okay. He was working on an art project when he ran out of buttons that he was gluing onto his poster. He went to the front of the class to take some more buttons from a large bowl on his teacher's desk. As he reached in, his hand slipped and the buttons fell onto him. He said that the event was distressing. He and his mother agreed that his avoidance of buttons had increased since this event and that he had not faced any other stressful or traumatic events that might be linked to his phobia. Okay. Was at kindergarten. At 5 years old. Do people... Yeah, I guess you are in kindergarten at 5. What am I talking about? Definitely not grade 1, I guess. Well, what do I know? I'm not a kid anymore. I'm a big boy. Sorry. If you didn't know, I'm 18. Wow. Insane lore. The I Hate Cambridge lore is coming out. Let's go. Okay. So, he was at kindergarten. Went to teacher desk to get to resupply. Why cannot type buttons for art project fell on him. Very distressing. No other likely causes discussed. Okay. Boy's daily functioning. Effect on daily functioning. To begin with, he did not have too many problems, but gradually he became unable to touch/handle buttons. He was unable... Sorry, my brain's not working. He was unable... Okay. Sorry. He was unable to touch/handle buttons. He was unable to get dressed by himself, and his schoolwork suffered because he could not concentrate. He was too worried about touching his school uniform or anything that might have been touched by his shirt buttons. At home, he avoided clothes with buttons and people with buttons on their clothing. Is it mean to say that I feel like there surely is something else wrong with you if buttons fall on you as a kid and you just get button phobia. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be something else off. Maybe that's mean. I think that's mean. My apologies. But, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know, because I feel like there's definitely a lot of stressful stuff. Or, like, you know, distressing things that happened to me when I was a kid. Right? Like, around this guy's age 5 or whatever. I'm sure there's plenty of distressing things that happened to me, but, you know, I didn't develop a phobia about these things. I guess it's just random, maybe. I mean, to be fair, issues with your brain in and of itself is random when you're born, right? So it's not like you have any control over that either, so it doesn't really matter. I wonder. Okay, anyways, let's get back on track. Yeah, we can actually move this over here. Right, origin of phobia. I like that more. Origin of phobia. So, beginning. In the beginning, not too many problems, but gradually became unable to handle buttons. Couldn't dress himself. Distracted at school. Uniform had buttons. Home, he avoided clothes buttons, people with buttons. Avoided clothes with buttons / people with buttons on them. Okay. Progress in the first 4 sessions. Progress in the first 4 sessions. So the first 4 sessions were behavioral exposure. The 4 50-minute exposure-based treatment sessions, 30 minutes alone, 20 minutes with mom, fear hierarchy, and in vivo exposures. First 4 sessions. Positive outcomes. Positive outcomes. The boy faced all of situations listed in his discussed hierarchy. Approach behaviors increased. For example, he could tolerate more buttons with each exposure. Negative outcomes. Subjective ratings of distress increased dramatically between sessions 2 and 3 and sessions 3 and 4. He reported being more distressed by medium-colored buttons and hugging his mother when she wears large plastic buttons than he was when he first created the hierarchy. This is expected according to the theory of evaluative learning and disgust-based phobias, which differ from fear-based phobias. Positive outcomes. Faced all 11 situations on the hierarchy. Increased approach behaviors. Somebody be cooking something right outside my window. Smells mid. Okay. Yeah. Good. Tolerate more buttons with each session. Okay. Negative outcome. Ratings. Where did those commas come from? What the fuck? Ratings increased dramatically. Sessions 2 to 3. Sessions 3 to 4. Felt more disgusted by certain then how the fuck do you spell scenario? Is it like this with a C? Oh goodness gracious. Am I retarded? I'm right, you guys. Just kidding, I'm a genius. Felt more disgusted by certain scenarios. Than before. It's expected according to the theory of evaluated learning and discussed space phobias. Expected according to theory of disgust-based phobias. Okay. Interesting, yeah. So we can see here, as the number of buttons were manipulated and the number of exposure sessions were, you know, attended, severity rating went up. The next 7 sessions. Progress. Next 7 sessions. Okay. Discuss related imagery and cognitions. So the next 7 sessions were the discuss related imagery exposure, meaning that he had to describe the buttons and imagine them. Yeah. And then discuss his irrational ideas and what's and so on. Okay. When asked about how buttons made him feel, the boy said the ideas from buttons on his body was disgusting and gross, but his heart didn't put it was exactly what was disgusting about the buttons, except that they smelt unpleasant. Bro is hallucinating. Following the disgust-related imagery exposure, subjective... So this is... Brother. I mean, there's actually something wrong with you then, no? Because buttons don't smell like anything. Okay, whatever. Poor child. Is what it is. Yeah. Except that they smelled unpleasant. Following disgust-related imagery exposure, subjective ratings of distress on the fear thermometer decreased. Nice. Said buttons made him feel gross / disgusting. Couldn't fully explain. Except for fact that they smelt gross. Unpleasant, I mean. Okay. Following the discussed, let's just say following the sessions, ratings decreased on the fear thermometer. Cool. As seen here. Objective ratings on the asked to imagine hundreds of buttons falling all over his body. 8 during, after. What am I saying? Before 8, during 5, after 3. Same thing here. Hugging his mother with a shirt full of buttons. Before 7, during 4, after 3. Genius, amazing. Post treatment. How far are we along here? How long have we been at this for? Okay, 40 minutes. Okay, that's I don't know. How much faster is that than usual? The eval usually takes a good chunk of time because it's a bunch of annoying stuff. We're doing okay, though. We're doing okay. Post-treatment, 6 and 12-month follow-up sessions. At each follow-up session, The 80 CP showed that the boy no longer met the DSM IV criteria for specific phobia. He reported no distress about button-related stimuli. He was wearing his school uniform shirt with small clear plastic buttons every day without any problems. Beautiful. Post-treatment. Follow-ups. Both follow-ups, ADIS CP showed he no longer fit criteria for specific phobia. No distress, was able to wear his uniform every day. No problem. Problemo. Okay. Conclusions. Evaluative learning is a useful way of understanding the role of disgust in childhood-specific phobias. While exposure therapy may be helpful in treating fear-based phobias, disgust-based phobias may also require imagery exposure and cognitions, which can be more effective in targeting emotions associated with the stimuli. Okay, got it. So, evaluative learning is useful in understanding the role of disgust in child's specific what is happening? Specific phobia. Man, I'm losing it. Exposure therapy may be helpful in treating fear-based phobias, but disgust-based phobias likely require what did we call it again? Disgust-related imagery exposure. Likely. Oh. Also. Wow. Also require this disgust-based imagery exposure. More effective at targeting emotions related to stimuli. Okay. Evaluation, everybody's favorite part. Just kidding. I mean, actually, it's pretty nice to. It's like I enjoy it. It's the more fun part of it all. Much more fun than remembering a bunch of numbers and random bullshit. But it's just annoying to have to do all this after you did everything else, right? But it is what it is. 2 for consent is crazy, though. 4 for validity. Oh, it's not 4 for validity. Sorry, it's only 2 for validity. It's not the worst, actually. You know what? It's not the worst. There have been more. There have been more. Sometimes you get like 4 for validity and you just kill yourself. Not that you should do that. It's a bad thing. Don't kill yourself, but you know, figuratively. Okay. Strength. Informed consent. Informed consent. Yay. Researchers gained informed consent from boy and mother. Consent was provided for both the... Why did I say consent? Consent was provided for both the initial assessment of his condition and the treatment program. The mother also consented to the write-up of her son's case for publication. This was a critical aspect of the study, as informed consent is necessary to protect people from psychological harm. This is especially important in this study as the mother and child were particularly vulnerable due to the cat's phobia. Okay. Boy and mother consented to initial interviews treatment program and publication. I don't know why they were write up, but publication. Important. All right, especially important, or extra is nice. Extra important, since it's a kid, and add a phobia, weakness, detailed descriptions, make anonymity, something. Oh yeah. Compromise anonymity. Did I spell that bad boy correctly? I did. W. Anonymity. Detailed descriptions compromise anonymity. Kindergarten. Wow. Story. So we have the kindergarten story. The kindergarten story, age, ethnicity, and city where he lived. City may have compromised anonymity to those who knew him. Once your outside information is revealed, this could place him greater risk of harm, even though it's not prior consent. Would place him at a greater risk of harm. Okay. A lot for ethics. We usually don't get that much for ethics. Okay. Math issues. Let's do a few enters here. Okay. Math issues. Test, retest reliability of the diagnostic interviews schedule. So it's the strength, reliable. I'm just writing an R for reliable, V for validity, or yeah, that's the idea. So strength, increased reliability. BIS. Wait, what is it called again? The ADIS. ADIS dash C slash. That's not a slash. Oh my god, my brain. Fuck me. I have to do 3 more of these tonight, dude. It's actually so over. And I have to do past papers. Yeah, damn, bruh. Yipers. Alright. Anyhow. Okay. Test, retest, reliability. Use of the ADIS. Shown to have great reliability. Diagnosing child phobia. Shows that wow, holy schmoly, diagnosis is reliable. Difficulty of replication. Weakness, reliability, difficulty of replication. So, lack of standardization is a weakness of the case study method. Lack of standardization. Common for case studies. Yeah. Procedure cannot be replicated exactly. Procedure cannot be replicated exactly. Okay, yeah. So therapy sessions are spontaneous sessions where the therapist is led by the client's individual needs. For example, if the child seemed particularly miserable one week, they might chat for longer than usual before starting the button exposure. This means therapy sessions cannot be connected in exactly the same way for another individual client. Possible to test the findings for reliability. Spontaneous nature of sessions. Findings can't be tested for reliability. Strength, validity, longitudinal design. Longitudinal design. Strength of the study was the follow-up sessions at 6 and 12 months. Follow. Oh my god. Follow-up. I don't know if I'm gonna make it, guys. I'm so fucking dead. Like, my brain is just so fogged up. Okay. Little stretch, little yawn, little head scratch, and we're back. We're back in it to win it. Okay. Follow-up sessions. Sometimes efficacy studies do not follow up the participants, and if they do it, it may only be for a short while after the therapy has ended. As the boy was symptom-free on both occasions, this is good evidence that imagery exposure therapy can have long-lasting effects for children with benefits, but without follow-up sessions, researchers cannot know whether they experienced a return of symptoms in the future. Makes sure treatment not short-term. Increases the validity of findings. I need to make a shortened version of reliability, just like REL or something. Okay. strength of this study. Because writing this shit over and over again is like actually, that shit is rotting my brain. Case study method is a strength. Strength, validity, case study method. Strength of the study was the use of the case study method, which allowed researchers to collect rich and detailed data using a variety of techniques. Oh my god. Like, my just fingers are not working. My hands are not working. Collection of detailed data. Using variety of techniques. Okay. Oh, this is gonna be a long one. I'm slowing down so much. Semi-structured interview. Observations. Feelings. Thermometer. Okay, that's enough. What does it all mean? This is called triangulation. Triangulation is when you use multiple data collection methods at the same time. Improves validity of that treatment is applicable. Okay. Next we have obj subobj. Obj subobj. Weakness. Self-report data is subobj. Classic subobj moment. Mother may have exaggerated the severity of her anxiety of the son. I also wish to please the therapist. Yeah, okay. Mom may have how the fuck do you spell exaggerate? I was right. Exaggerated due to anxiety. Son may have downplayed due to pressure from mom/therapist. 1 second, let me close my window. Okay. Continue. This is a problem as it increases the predictive data. Yeah. Increases subobj of data. Overestimation of efficacy. That's it for that. Now we have generalizations. It's weakness or strength? Weakness. Gen beyond the sample. Only one kid. Very simple. Therapy may not be as effective on a diff setting, therapists, etc. Prestigious uni. treated by expert therapists. Yeah. Okay. Another one. There's always two generations. Well, that I was proven wrong so incredibly fast. I've never seen something that quick. Okay. Issues and debates. I mean, there most of the time there's two. I'm surprised there isn't. Well, let's try and think of one. What could be one other for generalizations? Don't they have applications to like generalizing to everyday life on here? But I guess that doesn't really make sense because it's literal therapy, so of course you can generalize to everyday life. But then can you say that? Can you do that? That like, you know, whatever. So okay, whatever. I'm wrong. Rest in peace. Rest in pieces. Use of, yep, here it is. This is what I was talking about before. Whenever there's kids being used, this is always going to be an issue and debate. Use of children in psych research. Blah, blah, blah. Especially interesting things. Okay, sorry, I'll read it probably. But he focused on a 9-year-old child who attended therapy sessions with his mother. The researchers noted that they were especially interested to take this case as phobias are unusual, and also because not much had been published about evaluative learning discussed in childhood phobias. They used a specifically adapted version of the anxiety disorders interview schedule for DSM-IV that was suitable for children to make sure their diagnosis was valid, and the feelings thermometer was used to measure distress in a more child-friendly way, again in the hope of improving the validity of this data. Used a specific version of the ADIS for kids. Used feelings thermometer to make as it's more child friendly. To improve val of data. What is the next one? App to everyday life. Training therapist to target discuss. That makes sense. So, Saavedra and Silverman's findings are important as they highlight that some phobias cannot be treated successfully with exposure therapy alone. When the aversive stimulus is harmless and unthreatening, for example, buttons, it may be necessary to take a different approach and incorporate imagery and exposure and cognitions. This may require additional training to help the therapist to know when this alternative technique might be appropriate and how to create vivid images for children in an ethical yet effective way. I was about to say ethical yet effective, but I didn't. I stopped myself. Get wrecked. Yeah. Findings, highlight, use of imagery exposure along with exposure therapy, especially when dealing with disgust-based phobia. When the stimulus is harmless. May require additional training for therapist. Okay, there we are. We're done. That is Saavedra and Silverman. Time for the summary. This might be the longest one I've ever done. No, it's not. Oh my fucking god. Jesus, man. Just pushed, like, the wheel of my chair straight into my Achilles tendon. Like, almost rolled right over it. Jesus. Okay. So, summary time. Saavedra and Silverman. Button phobia. Our aims to highlight the role of evaluative learning and discussed in the development and treatment of children's phobias. Also, to test the efficacy of imagery exposure, which is part of an exposure-based cognitive behavioral treatment for a specific phobia of buttons. Research methodology. It's a case study. It's also a longitudinal study. The measured variables are his approach and avoidance behaviors, observed and recorded during the therapy sessions. For example, touching, holding, manipulating the buttons are approach behaviors. And they also used the feelings thermometer to score his distress levels. He was a 9-year-old boy, an American Hispanic boy from Florida. He had the button phobia since 5 years old and was selected for the study since he was put into the phobia program at the University of whatever, Miami or something, or Florida, via his mom. Procedure. Initial assessment / diagnosis. They used a semi-structured interview called the ADIS-C/P to test if he has a specific phobia. Yes, he does, of buttons. So yeah, it was a correct diagnosis. They discussed past traumatic events, for example, abuse and other things, eventually found out what it was, while also ruling out other disorders as the cause, for example, OCD. The treatment. First was behavioral exposure. This was 4 50-minute exposure-based treatment sessions. 30 minutes he spent alone, and 20 minutes he spent with his mom. This is important. It's 4 50-minute exposure-based treatment sessions. This is behavioral exposure, where he created a fear hierarchy, a list of 11 button stimuli ranked via feelings thermometer from least to most distressing, and where he also, more importantly, did these in vivo exposures, where he was gradually exposed to buttons in real life, and if he tolerated them, then he would be rewarded by his mom with praise, which was the operant conditioning positive reinforcement part of the study. Next, we move on to the other type of treatment after the behavioral exposure, discussed related imagery exposure. This was 7 sessions, no specific timing. The therapist asked the boy to describe buttons, how they look, feel, smell, how he feels about them, etc. They prompted him to imagine them in different sizes and different types or whatever. The small ones were the most distressing, and they also used cognitive restructuring in this process. The post-treatment and follow-up, he took the ADIS-CP again to test the efficacy of the treatment, and he took it again 6 months later and 12 months later. Those were the follow-ups. The results. The origin of the phobia. He was at kindergarten. He went to the teacher's desk to resupply with buttons for an art project. They fell on him. Very distressing. No other likely causes were discussed, and so they decided it was this. The effect on daily functioning. In the beginning, he wasn't having too many problems, but gradually he became unable to handle buttons. He couldn't dress himself, he was distracted at school because his uniform had buttons, and he avoided clothes with buttons and people with buttons on them. Progress during the first 4 sessions. The positive outcomes is that he faced all 11 situations on the hierarchy. His approach behaviors were increased, and he could tolerate more buttons with each session. But the negative outcomes were that the ratings increased dramatically between sessions 2 and 3 and between sessions 3 and 4. He felt more disgusted by certain scenarios than before, but this was expected according to the theory of disgust-based phobias. Progress in the next 7 sessions. In the next 7 sessions was disgust-related imagery exposure, where he imagines and describes the buttons. So let's just go over this quick, because I'm about to forget, and I need to know this. So, the first 4 sessions were 4 sessions of 50-minute, 4 50-minute sessions, 20 minutes, 30 minutes alone, 20 minutes with his mom, where he made the fear hierarchy and did in vivo exposure to the buttons on the fear hierarchy, and then rated them on the feelings thermometer. In vivo meaning in real life with the buttons there. Then the next 7 sessions, no specific timing, he did disgust-based image exposure, right? Is that what it's called? I wasn't looking. Disgust-related. Okay, same thing. Disgust-related imagery exposure, where he went and imagined them and talked about them with the therapists and whatever. Talked about how they made him feel, whatever. Okay, so next 7 sessions. He said that the buttons made him feel gross, disgusting, but he couldn't fully explain why, except for the fact that they smelled unpleasant. The following sessions, the ratings decreased on the fear thermometer. Very nice. Good progress. Post-treatment and in follow-ups. At both the follow-ups, his ADIS-CP showed that he no longer fit the criteria for specific phobia. He had no distress, and he was able to wear his uniform every day, no problemo. Conclusion. Evaluative learning is useful in understanding the role of disgust in children's specific phobias. Exposure therapy may be helpful in treating fear-based phobias, but disgust-based phobias are likely to also require disgust-based imagery exposure. More effective because disgust-based imagery exposure is more effective at targeting emotions related to stimuli. So, evaluation, ethics, strength. They got informed consent. Researchers gained informed consent from the boy and the mother. They consented to everything: the initial interviews, treatment program, and publication of the case. This is extra important since it's a kid and he had a phobia, which makes him more vulnerable to psychological harm than others. Weakness. The detailed descriptions in the case study kind of compromise his anonymity. His kindergarten story, his age, his ethnicity, his city were all added, and that may have compromised his anonymity to people who knew him, people close to him. This would place him at a greater risk of psychological harm. Methodological issues. Strength, increasing reliability, the ADIS-CP test, retest reliability. The use of the ADIS-CP test is increasing reliability here because it's shown to have great reliability diagnosing child phobia in other cases. And also shown, this shows that his diagnosis is reliable. Jesus Christ. Weakness. Reducing reliability, mixing validity and reliability. Reducing the reliability of the, my brain is just turned off. Reducing the reliability of the fucking study, Jesus. Reducing the reliability of the study is the difficulty of replication. Because it's a case study, this is common for case studies where there's a lack of standardization. The procedure cannot be replicated exactly due to the spontaneous nature of the sessions, and therefore the findings can't really be tested for reliability. Strength, validity. Increasing validity here is the longitudinal design. They had follow-up sessions, which makes sure the treatment is not short-term, but continues long-term, and the symptoms don't come back, and this increases the validity of the findings. Another strength, increasing validity, is the case study method. The collection of detailed data using a variety of techniques. Because it's a case study, you're able to do this. You can spend all your time on one patient, one person, one participant, one case. And so they used a semi-structured interview. They used observations during the therapy sessions, and they used a feelings thermometer to get his distress scores. This is called triangulation, where you get different types of data and use them together to come to a conclusion, and that improves the validity of the conclusion that the treatment is efficable. Objective, subjective, objet. It's a weakness. The self-report data that they got is subjective because the mom may have exaggerated due to anxiety, the son may have downplayed due to pressure from the mom or therapist. All throughout them talking about either their feelings, they could have exaggerated or downplayed, so on, lied, whatever. This increases the subjectivity of the data and may have caused an overestimation of the efficacy of the treatment. Third last, generalizations. This is a weakness. It's very hard to generalize beyond the sample because they only used one kid, treated at a prestigious university, treated by expert therapists. The therapy may not be as effective on a different kid in a different setting, treated by different, less experienced therapists, etc. Penultimate, issues and debates. Use of children in psychological research, to combat any sort of issues relating to using children in psychological research. They used a specific version of the ADIS for kids, the ADIS CP or whatever. And they also used the feelings thermometer as it felt more child friendly, and this was to improve the validity of the data. In terms of application in everyday life, we can train therapists to target disgust. Since the findings highlight the use of imagery exposure along with exposure therapy, especially when dealing with disgust-based phobia, when the stimulus is harmless and not harmful, it's especially useful there. However, that may require additional training for therapists. And that's the application in everyday life, and that is the end of this video. Thank you for watching, guys. Stay real with it. Good luck on your exams. I might be a little bit screwed, but I'm gonna try my best. Bye-bye.